All right. Today is going to be a working conversation on a certain topic. I'll tell you my proficiency in this topic is not a 10 out of 10. But I was telling Logan on our team here, I would rather learn on the fly. I would rather learn through training than making a mistake in front of a client. The topic we're going to be talking today is revolving estate planning. And then we're going to also be talking about one of the things that we can do for our clients where we can then get compensated on that through a platform called NetLaw. Tell me to get the room talking, what's your guys' understanding? What are some of the things that you know about estate planning?
You can shield taxes from the government,
Okay, expand on that a little further.
whether you want to pass down property, assets. You can avoid probate by having a estate plan in place.
Okay. Yep. Yep, if you want to avoid, having money going through the probate system at the time of your passing, you can have some legal documents in place to help make sure that you're avoiding going through that process and giving more of your money to the government and making sure your assets, whether it's a financial asset or a tangible asset, goes to who you want it to. Yeah, what are some other kind of common things that an estate plan can do?
I think my approach is understanding if there is like what level the need is at, meaning for maybe a new client, it's simply just having correct beneficiaries on accounts. And then that rises up to, a will and maybe a living trust where a net law or one of these online um, tools could be used. I know Nationwide has had one that I've directed a couple clients to. And then the next level up is like you've got major things to protect businesses, special needs. And for that, I have a an attorney in my area that I do referral business with.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think the topic of estate planning doesn't need to be as complicated as it needs to be. And I think like many things that we do for clients, it's kind of that sophisticated sounding term. If you say, "Oh, I have an estate plan," it maybe makes you feel like you have some sophistication to who you are. But I think by and large, many people that we're going to work with probably do not need an estate plan, or at most they need a couple of very, very generic documents on file. But yeah, an estate plan can be very simplified, but it can be also very complex. And so one of the things that we can do is we can work through a platform where we can get clients to do an estate plan, kind of a simplified version. I kind of called it like the estate plan, but like a robo advisor. So it's very generic. But when we have a lifestyle and a place in life where our life is not complicated yet, we can get a couple of those very basic and generic things on file for an inexpensive cost. Myself, for example, up until, not long ago, I was unmarried. It was just me. And so I didn't really have anything for someone to inherit or take over. It wasn't really that big of a deal. Now that I'm married and now that I have a child on the way, things are becoming a little more important, a little more relevant. So for now, my wife and I are beneficiaries on each of our accounts. And before a child came into the picture, quite frankly, if we were to pass away, it's not like we're millionaires. So whatever there was, whoever it goes to, I kind of really didn't, I wasn't too worried about it because I'd be dead anyways. But now that I have a child coming into the picture, I would very much want my child to be taken care of from the assets that I have. So if I were to pass away, my wife would inherit my accounts. She would get the life insurance money. It would be able to go to her. But what happens if both of us were to pass away at the same time? Well, that's where we can have some documents in place that can kind of cover some of those scenarios. So by and large, most people are going to have not a huge need for a bunch of sophistication. Both, husband and wife are going to be each other's beneficiaries. But as time progresses, maybe they have some children that are under 18. So that's where we might want to have something in place to kind of take care of the kids before they are of age of majority. But then another thing to consider is once they do get older and they get married and then they have kids, and there's multiple layers where we can understand why having some of this in place is of value. So I probably can't share my screen, and Tyson left the room, so that's helpful. But we have a platform called NetLaw where we can do some things very generically for clients, where we can get them a link to essentially create their own estate planning documents. So before I can share my screen, I'll just kind of very verbally walk through some of those scenarios. So there's three levels of packages that people can get through NetLaw. And so it's very affordable. So through someone through WealthWave, WealthWave has a partnership. So there's a cost of $400 for a very basic plan where you'd get the big thing is going to be a will and a financial power of attorney, medical power of attorney, and I think like a last will and testament, maybe. So that's $400. So, if we've got some children under 18, who's the legal guardian at the time of both of our passings? And if I were to be in a position where I can't make medical or financial decisions on my own, I can list those people. So that's very, very basic and generic. I think that's really helpful. So then the next package above that is now $600, and that's going to be everything that we had just covered, in addition to then a revocable trust. So I'm going to have it pulled up here on a different screen. So the big thing here is we can now get a revocable living trust. So if I want to, list, my assets in there, if, my Roth IRA, for example, if my child is 4 years old and my wife and I both pass away at the same time, my child at 4 years old can't inherit my Roth, so I can have my trust listed. So that whole package, that's $600. And then there's over and above that, there's a special needs trust package for 750. I don't know if that's then completely separate. What I would tell you guys and for the training is there's probably a couple indications where we would probably want to have an attorney on file, where someone's professionally working with someone, where there's a special needs child in place. I think that's incredibly important. I'm going through that with my uncle right now. Like Ryan had said, if someone has businesses or a business where there's a little more nuance to it. But then I think too, as someone becomes to have, some multiple assets, they have children from multiple marriages, there's a little more complication where if you feel like it's not a very clean cut, super easy, hey, both people pass away, money just needs to get passed down to the next heirs. I would defer to having someone go and sit down with an actual attorney. So does that all make sense to you guys?
Yes.
Okay. So there's a couple resources that I would tell you that I need to do it myself, but we can go to do some learning about this topic. One is a book called How Money Works. So obviously we all know what this book is. So in the back at the very end of our 7 money milestone process is protecting wealth. There's a couple pages, and it is just a couple pages, but talks about some of those very basic uh, documents that I've talked about here, and then talks about, hey, anything that's a little more complicated, talk to an attorney. But doing your own research, learning some of these documents, when do we use them, when don't we use them? And I think I'll tell you transparently, I've learned these things over time, but when it's not utilized, it's a very perishable skill, perishable piece of knowledge. So unless I'm talking about it frequently, I'm going to be forgetting about it. So I think the more we're in tune with being in front of these things, I think that's more valuable. So, Tyson, if you could allow me to share my screen, I want to come back to.
You know how much I struggle with this stuff. They've totally changed this format again.
They did. Let me see if I can request it.
I'm in host tools. Oh, here we go. I got it.
There we go. Okay, so coming back to this here, so like I had said, there was kind of three stages of packages that people can get here. So, what I would tell you is for one, I think we are underutilizing and underselling the importance of estate planning with our clients. I think it's a very necessary component of things to talk about. So, going back to what I was saying, along with probably our whole team here, we need to make sure that we're understanding what an estate plan is, some of these documents, where does it fit, where does it not fit, where does a platform like this fit versus telling some clients to go to an actual attorney? I think that's our role of kind of figuring some of these things out. But beyond that, I think some of these packages here could definitely benefit our clients that maybe don't need to necessarily go and talk to an official attorney quite yet. And so, like I had said, myself, I'm a young family. We're just getting started. We don't have a house yet. We don't have many assets necessarily to cover. And so I think there's a really great, kind of chunk of our client base that we could probably have this conversation with, and it would be a great fit to consider doing something like this. Beyond this, the tangible, being able to just send them a code, that's super easy, and having them kind of walk through, and there's worksheets, there's stuff in here that helps the client guide on what they need to do and how to fill it out. But I think, this isn't necessarily, I was telling Logan before we got on the training, this is not my 90-day business plan to like increase my cash flow. I want to do I'm still very focused on everything else we're doing, but I think as I'm sitting down with some of my clients and doing some of our reviews, if they do not have an estate plan in place, I think this might be valuable to maybe review, go through and explain why they should be talking about some of this. So inside the NetLaw platform. It's free for us to sign up. There's no cost, there's no obligations. The only thing to notate is if you are a securities or investment licensed with our company, you have to register this as what's called an OBA or outside business activity. Very easy process. If you don't know how to do that, reach out to myself or Tyson. But beyond that, this platform is very vanilla. It is very skimmed down to just be able to have you walk through and cover some of these things. So when I'm on my home screen, I come over here to resources, and then you can see some of the things that I can simply click on of what are some of these estate plan documents. Again, they do not have a overly complicated explanation of these things, but you can see how we can walk through some of these documents to know what's going on. This video here,
Upload it to our Google Drive folder.
I can, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So when you initially get onto the platform here, there's two videos to watch. There's this one, and then if you go to the chat and then click on send us a message, and then you click on watch a demo, it will create a link to then click on and watch a training video. This demo video is about 13 minutes. This video right here on the watch our demo is about 2 minutes and 47 seconds. So I will tell you guys my proficiency in this platform and estate planning in general is not strong yet just because I'm very new to it. When I talked with someone from NetLaw, she got me in here in under 2 minutes. She said, watch this video, watch the other video, and at this point, you now know as much as everybody else we've ever talked to. Goodbye. And then hung up on me. So this is not going to be, there's not a whole lot of resources here. So that's where we need to do a lot of learning on the front end. But you can come in here, you can do all kinds of stuff. So I don't anticipate we would be doing this necessarily, but we can create like, if we wanted to create a flyer where we want to host like a client event here at the office, we can do things like that. There's presentations to walk through. There's all kind of stuff. But we can jump in and just kind of click around and kind of see what's at our fingertips. But up to this point, that's everything I know. My understanding, I think, is we maybe make about $100 per package that we sell. So it's not a huge money making opportunity for us, but I think what's, more valuable than anything is those younger clients or those clients that have a simple need. It's a very inexpensive route for them to go, and it's an easy way for us to make a little bit of money from this. So I'll pause here. Any questions about anything we've covered so far?
So Alec, it's $100 no matter which package you use to refer.
Yeah, that I'm not entirely sure. I didn't even get a chance to ask the person, the lady that I was talking to, but I'm willing to bet it probably is the same kind of flat. It's essentially just like a referral fee, to say, hey, thanks for directing people to our platform. Ryan, did you have a question?
Yeah, say someone gets, young couple, young family, just wants the peace of mind, gets an essential package. But then their life grows and needs change and 10, 15, 20 years and they want to take their existing plan and get it reviewed by a real attorney. Are they like starting the estate planning process over? Are those documents just being updated? Anyone could speak to that.
That's a good question. So the technicalities of it, I think it's going to probably depend. So I'll use my uncle as an example. We had used one estate planning attorney in town here, and I started to get some skepticism of this current plan that we had in place, the documents. And so I had asked another attorney in town to give it a review, thinking that we were now going to have my client get a completely new document and plan in place. And I was surprised that when we sat down with this secondary attorney that gave us a second opinion, she had said, hey, a lot of this is actually okay. It's fine and dandy, but there's a couple of changes and tweaks I would make. And so similar to when we might take an account over from a client, I don't know if that would be necessarily the best example, but essentially he paid kind of like a fee for her to take over the account, a little bit of money for her time, but she didn't redraft an entirely new estate plan. She took
Mm.
over the existing documents, so essentially had kind of like a rep change put in place, and then she made the couple edits that she did. So I don't know if that's dependent on the attorney, but at the very least in our scenario, that was a good surprise for me that it wasn't this huge process where he was going to pay 5 grand to have everything redone. It was pretty simple. And then I would say too, if there are edits that you want to make, part of NetLaw's platform is there's free lifetime updates. So on that pricing sheet, it says at the bottom that you can make changes at any time. Now, if you got the essentials package and then life changes and now you want a trust, well, now you're going to probably have to go and purchase that secondary package. But if you have a trust in place or you want to just make changes to some of those forms, my understanding is you would just need to get them printed off and notarized and then submit it to them. Any other questions about any of this?
You guys currently have NetLaw as an OBA.
I put my request in yesterday for it. I haven't seen that it got approved yet or rejected at all.
I'm pretty sure I'm checking mine right now. I'm pretty sure I have it on there for what it's worth from forever ago. I think it's been awesome. I think this is to Alex, your point, I think we're totally underutilizing this resource. And I think the only thing I'd add to this would be, guys, I can't tell you how many times I've turned like a question related to, hey, I want to start a college fund for a grandchild or something into like a full blown client process where, yeah, we do the 529, but then I get into everything else we do. And I see this in the same lane. There's a lot of people that they don't know who to call, they don't have the money, they don't want to start, it seems intimidating, or hey, how many times do we write life insurance policies and either don't list contingent beneficiaries or put kids as contingents, which is like a huge challenge. And so I just think this is a huge value add. And in a world of AI and tech and more apps and do it yourself everything, the more value that you represent, the more you're quarterbacking for a client, just the longer, the more sustainable your business is, the more loyal your clients are, the more referable you are. It's all of the above.
Yeah. Um, yeah, so I'll tell you guys, I obviously I said I'm probably a 3 out of 10. So I have still more learning to do yet. So this is not something I'm, calling people effectively in 5 minutes to try and get them in front of it. But I think by the end of the week, I'll know a lot more about it and feel comfortable here in the very, very near future, being able to direct some clients to this and kind of see what this process looks like. So there's some tangible steps of how to get registered with the platform and all that. So that might be something if you start to have some of those client situations come up, or I'll when I upload the training, I'll put some of those requirements in the description of how to go about doing all this. But over and all, this is an easy platform to utilize. It's a topic to get in front of some clients. There's many scenarios, like Tyson said, where a client says, "Hey, I'm listing my minor as a beneficiary," and this probably is an easy way for me to parlay a conversation of, "Hey, we need to get a trust in place, or get something on the docs, and start a client there." So, yeah, if there's no further questions, then this is some homework for all of us to probably learn on, get more familiarized. But I think this is a huge net asset for our clients, huge win for them, and obviously we can get compensated for it on the back end too. So, um, yeah, if there's no further questions, then I'll let us all get back to our days.
This has been awesome.
I'll say this really quick. I just had to go check a client file. I sold one of these to an existing client in 2018, and the NetLaw flip chart I have prices the estate planning, like the essentials package. Back then it was $500.
Yeah,
So something has actually come down in price.
yeah. I think what happened is WealthWave has some type of a deal with them.
Yeah.
Because when I got on the phone with the lady, she had asked who we clear business through, and I had said, "Hey, I think it's through WealthWave," and she said, "Oh, yep." So I don't know if the pricing that we have there is through WealthWave or that's just their general platform. But I also think too the $500 included a trust, so
Okay.
they might have separated them.
You're right.
But yeah, so all right, well we'll get back to it, and we'll talk here next week.
Hey, boys.